Okay, welcome everybody to Steve and Friends. I have a real good friend lined up to chat to today. Mr. Nathanael Wood, very well known, of course, in Sydney, where he resides with his family and where he serves. He's the state pastor for New South Wales. So the campus people at Hills, where he is based, and the people around New South Wales would know him reasonably well. However, the vast majority of people watching and listening to this right now, I'm pretty sure a good majority of what we're about, or a good percentage of what we're about to speak to, Mr. Wood, would be revolution and revelation to the listeners from elsewhere who know you as a preacher, know you as a leader, but we're going to try to get to know you a little bit more, if that's all right. So just so everybody is absolutely aware, Hillsong State Pastor for New South Wales and for Queensland. That means we get chance to rub shoulders a lot, which is fantastic. New South Wales, the biggest state, biggest number of campuses for Hillsong Church across the country that you're responsible for. The biggest campus itself is Hills, where you are based. And Nathanael is one of the great leaders of our church globally. Now, you are married. You are married to Beck Wood. And a bit of trivia for you, Nathanael, before we jump in. My son, Johnny, married a Becky Wood.
Oh,
so Becky Wood became Becky Dixon. So there we both got a couple of Beck Woods in our world. And 4 kids, Mitchell, Lincoln, Cooper, and Annika. So that's going to be cool. We're going to talk about them a little bit as well. So let's start simple. Nathanael, how do you spell it? E-A-L or A-E-L?
it's like a good New King James version. Nathanel.
Absolutely. Now, I knew that, but not everybody does. And that frustrates you slightly, I understand. Also, Also, I understand you're not that enamored by being called Woody.
No.
Make a case.
No. Look, I've never liked it. And there are some people that have called me that for a long, long time, and they get exemptions, and they're very, very, very close friends. But one thing that gets under my skin is when people that I've known for 3 days call me by that name.
Presume. That's a good answer, mate. All right, so come on, let's get this baby on the road. Okay, life story, 2 minutes from the womb.
From the womb, born in Wurrunga to my parents, who then took me to Victoria. My dad was new in the RAF, Royal Australian Air Force, where he trained. Came back to Richmond, which is about 25 minutes west of the Hills campus. And then, we went to a Baptist church, and then I was in Boys Brigade, which I love to talk about. Boys Brigade, which is almost like the Christian version of Scouts. And in the year that I became Boys Brigade Leader of the Year, my dad made a significant choice to change churches to a new church that was starting up in the Hills district called Hills Christian Life Centre. So he made that decision based on the future of his kids. I'm one of 5, and he wanted to see his kids in a contemporary church that had a future. And so we made that change basically in the beginning of the Hills journey. So and then went to Hillsong College. A big shout out to Hillsong College, Lee Burns. He's always living the dream. Hillsong College in 95 and 96. And then came on as an intern pastor with Pastor Brian in 1999, married in 98. That's important to include.
Very important.
And just don't ask me what my anniversary date is, because I always get it wrong, but that's another story. And then 1999, so I did that for a few years until going to plant a church in the Northern Beaches, which was something that Pastor Brian facilitated. And we did that for 12 years. So we pastored a church called Seaview Church on the Northern Beaches of Sydney, and then felt a very significant prompting to return to Hillsong, which we did. And we've been back at Hillsong for the last 6 years. In that time, as you said, we had 4 kids. My eldest is 20. Mitchell, Lincoln is 18, who just graduated year 12 today. I watched his graduation online because I couldn't be there. Cooper, who's 16, Annika, who is 10, 3 boys and a girl, and I'm incredibly blessed. with a family like that.
That's true. So there's a lot in there. I'd love to revisit one or two of those things. So let's go back to a very important part of your life at the beginning. When did you have to give up Boys Brigade and wearing shorts and tying knots?
I had to give it up. And
you did?
It was, look, I wasn't happy about it. To be honest, I remember the day when we went to church. We left church, Dad pulled the car over and he announced to the kids, I think there was only 4 of us at the time, that we weren't going to go back to that church. Now, that seems very, very harsh, and I think we may have cried and were upset. But all I know is that my dad was a visionary at that time and basically made a choice that I'm incredibly grateful for, because to be a part of the Hillsong journey from the beginning has been an absolute blessing.
That's fantastic. And now, of course, 2 generations. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
So what was Nathanael with an AEL like as a teenager?
Look, I think by and large, look, I went to a school in Riverston, which is at 20 minutes from the Hills campus as well. I was school captain. So there was parts of me that definitely had responsibility, but there was definitely parts of me that wanted to, maybe push the boundaries, push the line a little bit. So I was not studious by any means, though I chose the most difficult subjects of chemistry, physics, subjects like that. But I definitely went a little wayward in my teenage years, even though I still loved church. And, well, let's just say I didn't try drugs because I was a Christian. But other things, well, you never know.
You never know. So we'll do that in interview number 2. We'll leave that there just for now. Okay.
That's eye-opening stuff, Steve. I'm telling you right now. It's a scoop. It's a scoop.
Mate, if you want to go there, man, the invitation is right there.
No,
right there.
Let's just say it's not that entertaining, to be honest.
Okay, that's fine. Absolutely fine. So let's fast forward to the marriage proposal. 1997 or 1998, when you got married. Was it a complete success, that marriage proposal?
Look, let's just say I went through the whole day this is the last time that I'm going to brush my teeth in the morning as a single man, because I was going to be a fiancé. I was going to be engaged. So I went through the entire day doing that, and I proposed to Beck under the Harbour Bridge on the way to a dinner at the Park Hyatt there at the Rocks in Sydney, for those that know that. And so there I was under the Harbour Bridge. I popped the question and I said something like, we can either go to dinner as boyfriend and girlfriend, or we can go to dinner as you as my fiancé. Will you marry me? And basically, to cut a long story and a devastating story short, she ended up saying no. She thinks she said, I just can't. But for me, that's the same thing. But I remember in the moment basically trying to sell it. I pointed into the distance and said, think about it. Our life is an empty canvas. We can paint whatever we want to paint. I literally went into sales mode, but let's just say it didn't go well. And she's crying, saying, no, I just can't. And I'm pretty much telling her, well, I'm not hanging around. And then I said to her this, I said, are you still hungry? She said, no. I said, neither am I. So we got back in the car and I drove her home.
Oh, buddy, what a life you've lived.
But can I say, I think it was, and by the way, the next day, she flew out with girlfriends to an island somewhere, uncontactable for 10 days. So she just left me entirely hanging. But the story finishes with about a month later, she picked me up from Connect Group. All good things happen at Connect Group. And I came down to the car, and on the dashboard was a little card, and I opened it up and it said, my answer is yes. So,
nice.
There you go.
Nice. Yeah. It's all about getting to those big moments. It always works out. It's fantastic. Great. Yeah. That's a good story, man. That's a great story. So in like 60 seconds, try and describe Beck, the Beck of today, for everybody that doesn't know her so well.
I think she does life effortlessly, and that's not without challenges and whatever. I just think that she's definitely graced as a wife. She's graced as a mum, and she's just graced in life. I think she does. She's bubbly. She seems to be carefree, but she takes things seriously. She has a degree in well, she went to university and did anthropology in world politics. So she's intelligent. She's got a great heart for people, a great pastor, and I think she does life in a way that is inspiring to many.
That's right. She's a love of fun as well. She's a great person, great human.
Yeah.
So you got the 4 kids, Mitchell, Lincoln, Cooper, and Annika. In just a couple of words on each, just kind of describe your kids for people that don't know them.
Well, the interesting thing about our 4 kids is I see a lot of me in them. So it's quite, and as does Beck. So yeah, it's not a good thing for them. Mitchell's he's studying science at university, so he's quite intelligent. And Lincoln, who I said just graduated today, Lincoln, he just wants to be at everything, and he's just one of those guys where he just loves everything. Everything's awesome, but he's got a heart for the Lord, heart for ministry. So I'm looking forward to his future in regards to that. Cooper, he's an athlete. He plays rugby league. He trains, so he's building himself up. But again, someone who I think has a leadership gift on his life. And then Annika, well, she's the love of the joy of our family, and and so much of her, sadly as well, reminds me of me in many ways. But yeah, she's direct. She's straight. She's got her own thoughts on things. She's 10, and as they say, going on 18. So she's growing up before our eyes. So anyway, the 4 kids are awesome. Love them very much. Yeah.
Yeah, great family. That's great. So let's just talk about you. What makes you you? So I may have asked your wife and even your PA for a little bit of insight into the Nathanael Wood that they see on a daily basis. So I got a bit of a scoop from them about some of your qualities, habits. Before I tell you 1 or 2 of those things, what do you think either of them would have said?
Well, I definitely am a creature of habit. I joke about being the most consistent person that anyone knows, because, well, a lot of people go for fads with health diets and all this sort of stuff, but I just plod along in a consistent line. And so definitely a creature of habit.
And that did actually come up. It's true. And one of the illustrations, you can tell me whether this is precise or not, is that you watch the same 5 movies and 2 shows almost on repeat. You have the same drink on a Monday day off every week. You sit at the same picnic table and you wear the same shirt but in different colors. True or false?
Can I? Okay. Yeah, true.
Okay.
The idiosyncrasy of me is I love things that remind me that I've got a day off. So on a Saturday and a Monday, which are my days off, I change my hot drink order from a strong long black to a almond dirty chai, extra hot, extra shot. And
how do you even order that? Isn't that embarrassing?
No, well, I don't, because I send Beck to order it.
Okay. See where you're going. Smart. Got it sorted.
So, and I change my cologne on those days as well. So I've got things that trigger that I'm on a day off. Okay. So yes, I am a creature of habit.
So that is true. Okay. Give me something that you reckon your wife would say about you.
She might say that I'm argumentative, but she might have been positive, because she's very positive. So she might not have said anything negative to you, Steve. Not that there's very many negative things anyway.
I'm asking you what you think.
I think she would say that I'm a good debater. I'm argumentative at times. I don't know what else she would have said. But back to the movies, by the way, I do have a very niche. I don't love every movie, and nor will I watch every movie. I love movies that inspire me. I love movies that transport me into a bigger world. So I do watch movies, but they're very purposeful, and they have a purpose to.
All right.
Yeah,
that's good. All right. Well, let's keep this moving, because just a couple of positive things. One thing your wife said about you is you are intensely loyal, that you have a great sense of loyalty to people. You value it, you practice it, you stand with people, and you stick with them. But the one that fascinated me was something that Beck said about your ability to change, because she said, I reckon Nathanael doesn't even like change, but he has this ability that when he sees something, gets it, understands like I need to change something, he just has this ability to change it like that, and it's done. And the illustration was that there was something that you must have gone through or heard about, and your deduction was you realized you were hard to live with at the time.
Yeah.
And when you thought it through, worked it out, you basically made a decision, I'm not going to be hard to live with. You changed it. And she said, literally, from then on, he wasn't hard to live with. He was easy to live with. So what did you change? That's going to help a few people.
Well, to be honest, I had a moment where I asked myself, how would I go living with me? How would I go being, in the same house as me? And it was a rude shock, to be honest, because I thought I wouldn't like it at all. So I definitely I love excellence, and I love things to be better than they are and continually being improved. So I can be very critical. I think I can be positive, but I can definitely see room for improvement. So I think with people around and about me, they definitely cop that, whether that's positive or negative. But yeah, I definitely think that part of me, the ability to change, I think is true.
Yeah. And some of the things that we said, we haven't got time to go into them now, and things that I would see as well. You're seen as being someone who's very deliberate, very strategic, intentional. You maximize. You're always looking to make the good better, the best it can be, all of that sort of stuff.
That word, that word you just said, intentional, that would be one of the words that I would write, at the top of the list for me. Yep. I'm very intentional with friends, intentional with the things that I do or don't do. I'm very intentional. Yeah, I think intentionality is a good thing.
That's great. Okay, for the rest of the time, there's not that much time left, because there never is enough when you're talking to interesting people. But I want to just talk about your leadership journey a little bit.
Yeah.
So you were, back in the day, New Christians pastor at Hillsong Church. You've already mentioned, with Brian's endorsement and help and support, you went to plant a church in Sydney. Did you say, is it Northern Beaches, that area?
Northern Beaches, right? Yep.
And then, of course, you came back to Hillsong. But anyway, going into that church planting experience, just tell us in a moment of time, why do that when you're already in a church that you like and you love?
But when growing up in our church, Hillsong Church, as a young kid, I used to look at Pastor Brian and want to do what he did: preach, lead, oversee a church, and grow it, and so forth. So that was always in my heart to do. And so when I left our church to go and plant that church, that was for life. In my mind, in my heart, it was for life. And I never would have thought in a million years that I would have returned. And I think for 12 years, which was the time that we were there, I think what God was able to do, and I don't want to put words in God's mouth, and I don't want to try and super spiritualize it, but I think I needed to leave our church to go and have another experience and to be prepared for the thing that maybe God had on my life to do. And I just don't think maybe that I would have been prepared, other than expending those 12 years in a small church and needing the faith for all the different things that you need in regards to pioneering and planting and pastoring. Yeah. I think what I learnt with leadership, what I learnt with people, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of those things, in the moment, I underestimated what God was doing in me. But it's only now, with what I'm doing now, looking back, and I think they were the best 12 years, because what God was able to achieve then that I can only see now, I think I'm incredibly grateful for. In the time, they were hard. They were difficult years. Pioneering and planting, as you know, Steve, is definitely a challenge. But I'm incredibly grateful for that experience. Looking back,
it's good. So, what was the trigger to come back?
To be honest, I wrestled with it for a long, long time, and I had conversations over those 12 years, but was so tenacious and determined to make what we were doing, work and grow and progress and so forth. But I just felt at some point that things started to shift in me, and it was out of character, because I'd never felt that before, and nothing had shifted, nothing had changed. And anyway, so I had a conversation with Beck, obviously, my closest friends, my board, and basically people in my inner circle of life. And every single person who I floated the idea with said this was always going to happen. But I still wasn't on board with it, because I still didn't think it was right, because I hate people that change. I don't hate. I don't like when people, all of a sudden, God was calling you to this, and then all of a sudden he changes his mind and calls you to that. I didn't want to be that person. So I took change very seriously. I took the people that I was pastoring very seriously. And to the point where I even sought out a prophet, and it's a long story, but what this person said over our life, there's no way she would have known other than by God. And that was the final thing that was the endorsement to, you know what, God's in this. I'm going to take a step of faith and see what comes of it. But it was courageous, to be honest. To go from a senior pastor to go to what I went to was a big journey.
Yeah, and I understood that initial season coming back to Hillsong, I mean, instead of being on the platform and leading and preaching, you're now sitting in the congregation, you're working in the foyers, welcoming people. I mean, to some people, it looks like, in a secular sense, a demotion from being here and now doing this. But when you look in God's economy and you do things with the right heart and the right attitude, then God has seriously promoted you over recent times to be in a very strategic position and role. So that's because God trusts you, and you obviously handled that great. Time's gone, but I've got to ask you about this. So here's this great preacher, which you are, mate, great leader, which you are, and somehow you end up speaking off the back of old envelopes. What the heck is that all about?
I think over the years that I was leading, it probably goes back further. I'm a bit of a last minute type of person. I'm a procrastinator. Procrastinator and someone who wants excellence are two totally different, it's a recipe for disaster. But I am a procrastinator. I'm a last minute person. So basically, if I need to do a leadership thought, I would pick up the most, if it was a serviette, if it was an envelope, if it was a scrap bit of paper, then I would write down my thoughts on it. So the envelope was born when I picked up an envelope and wrote on it a leadership thing. And I just seemed to keep picking up the envelope and writing a leadership thought on it, and it just continued. So I think the envelope has just the right amount of space, but just the right amount of time for a leadership thought. So,
very good.
Yeah.
So the Robert Ferguson methodology, where he's got neat books all categorized through subjects and then through years and where he's preached them and all that, and you just have a drawer full of envelopes. That's fantastic, mate.
I've got a drawer full of envelopes for leadership. And then in the last 6 years, even my preaching has gone through a revolution, because I used to be so scrappy in my preaching notes, and it was like a smorgasbord. Nobody would have a clue, including me, what would come out. And since then, basically gone on a journey to be a whole lot more methodic and structured, which is big for me. So leadership is envelopes, and preaching definitely has got a whole lot more structure than it was in the past.
Amazing. Well done. Well, mate, I've got to say, one of the great pluses for me over recent years, having both of us become state pastors, is the chance to work with you and get to know you, become a mate and a friend apart from working together. I think one of the great joys in life, and I would include this with, Tim Douglas, Victoria and Krishan. Where's Krishan, by the way? Krishan in Perth, that all of us together, to be able to serve God in the biggest cause, to be able to do work and do something in the biggest possible cause, and to do it with your mates is really quite an honor. So it's one of the highlights for me. Definitely has been working with you, my friend. I love how you talk about Beck and the kids, and I don't mean in this interview. I mean just all the time. I love how you value and honor Pastor Brian and Bobby, and you do that so well, represent them so well, make things better for them. I know you've never been afraid to say it like it is, to team, to staff, and I love that, and I know many people do. You're genuinely a great leader. A lot of pastors of churches can be good at the people side and pastoral side, but with a dearth of leadership, whereas you have the leadership gift on your life and pastor people at the same time. So that's great. And you kind of know how to work on the church, not just work in the church. When they talk about that in business terms, but you've certainly done that. You're a great friend. You're a good mate for life. Up your loads. Really appreciate your time, willingness to do this. And we'll see you one day wherever New South Wales and Queensland allow us to travel. I guess I'll see you one day sometime. But in the meantime, we'll keep on talking on these things many times through the week. But God bless you. Thank you so much, my friend. I'm sure everybody's enjoyed getting to know you just a little bit more. Thanks for chatting today. And to everybody else, stay safe, be happy, and we'll see you next time.